Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Yuko Itade. Let's look at the stories making headlines across the continent. Tensions high in the Democratic Republic of Congo as fresh fighting erupts once again between the Congolese army and Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. Violence flaring up despite a fragile peace deal signed between the two sides last month. Thousands of ancient manuscripts from the 13th century finally back to their rightful place in the Malian city of Timbuktu. The texts had been smuggled out by an Al-Qaeda-linked group during their occupation of the city in 2012. And we'll take a look at Tree Man, an artist turned climate activist in Zimbabwe who has planted thousands of trees across the capital in hopes of inspiring the next generation and cooling down the city's overheated neighborhoods. Begin the program in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where fighting has flared again between the Congolese army and M23 rebels. This despite a fragile peace deal. Since Friday, there's been an uptick in violence near the town of Mulamba in South Kivu, with M23 backed by Rwanda clashing with groups loyal to Kinshasa. The renewed hostilities defy the declaration of principles signed on July 19th, in which both sides committed to a permanent ceasefire. Emmett Livingstone has more now from Kinshasa.
Clashes with M23 rebels in eastern Congo have resumed, despite a peace process meant to stop the fighting. Details remain scant, but according to humanitarians and security officials, there's been fighting in the provinces of North Kivu and South Kivu since the weekend. On Tuesday, the Congolese army denounced what it called near-daily attacks committed by the M23. It also said it reserved the right to respond. The M23, for its part, this week accused the Congolese army of committing offensive military measures, despite peace talks. Under heavy international pressure to stop the fighting, especially from the United States, the M23 and the Congolese government last month signed a declaration of principles that was meant to lead to a ceasefire and a permanent peace agreement. But those talks have been stalling. Envoys from both sides were supposed to meet in Qatar's capital, Doha, on Friday to begin discussions on a lasting peace agreement. That meeting hasn't yet taken place, according to diplomatic sources. The UN said that the M23 killed over 300 civilians in July in areas of eastern Congo that it occupies. The M23 has denied this.
Next, France has formally acknowledged its brutal colonial past in Cameroon. In a letter to his Cameroonian counterpart, President Emmanuel Macron admitted France's role in mass forced displacement internment camps and the backing of violent militias during the country's fights for independence in the late 50s. The conflict, long hidden from public view, erupted after World War II as Cameroonians demanded sovereignty from French rule, which had begun in 1918 after Germany's defeat in World War I. The admission marks a rare moment of reckoning over a violent chapter of France's colonial legacy in Africa. Meanwhile, in Cameroon, election season is well and truly underway. The country's election authority has now released an official list of candidates for October's vote, featuring 12 political parties. But notably absent is leading opposition figure Maurice Kamto. His candidacy was rejected by the Constitutional Court last week. Kamto is now accusing President Paul Biya's camp of orchestrating a political bloc to keep him off the ballot, raising fresh concerns about the fairness of the upcoming vote. Stephanie Akoa, a political analyst in Cameroon, says the opposition leader could still have a massive influence over the vote.
Mr. Kamto's decision on whether to provide voting instructions will obviously be crucial for the rest of the electoral process, given the influence of his supporters. If they switch their support to another candidate, that candidate may feel they have a better chance of winning. It remains to be seen how much influence Mr. Kamto has lost among his traditional electorate, as the recent changes may have confused some of his supporters.
Let's turn our focus to a developing story in Mali now. The country's former Prime Minister, Choguel Maïga, has been arrested. It's reported he's being questioned by investigators over the alleged embezzlement of public funds while he was in power. It comes just weeks after Maïga criticized Mali's junta for deciding to remain in power for the next 5 years without elections. The former leader was himself fired by the country's military leaders last November after denouncing the junta for postponing elections without informing him. We're heading to Malawi now, where anger is boiling over amid long-running fuel shortages. Frustration mounting in the East African nation as people are forced to wait in lengthy queues at petrol stations, with some even camping out overnight. The crisis is pushing some to the black market, where prices are soaring. With just over a month until the general election, the fuel crunch is shaping up to be a top issue at the polls. Take a listen to what people in Malawi are saying.
My business is not doing well because of the scarcity of fuel. I'm a motorcycle taxi operator, and it is becoming difficult to convince people to pay higher fares when they want to take a patient to a hospital, for example.
So let's assume that this continues up to 16th September. People will be very furious. People will be very angered. You cannot sleep at the filling station and you go to the polling center the next day, that is, while you are somehow, happy with that, what is happening. You'll be angered. As a result, you will vote against the sitting government or the ruling party.
In Mali, a trove of ancient manuscripts has finally returned to their home in Timbuktu. Thousands of texts dating back to the 13th century are now back at the Ahmed Baba Institute, more than a decade after they were smuggled out during an Al-Qaeda-linked occupation in 2012. Militants destroyed over 4,000 manuscripts, 9 mausoleums and a historic mosque door, most of them UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Emily Boyle takes up the story.
Packed tightly in the back of this army truck, the Timbuktu manuscripts are finally arriving back home. Their return was celebrated by the local community, who pulled out all the stops to welcome them back.
The return of his manuscripts today reminds us that Timbuktu, through its mosques and universities, was an open-air library dedicated to education, dissemination and transmission of knowledge.
While the manuscripts date back to the 13th century, it is perhaps the last 15 years of their existence which have been the most turbulent. In 2012, Timbuktu fell into the hands of Islamist armed groups, who destroyed more than 4,000 manuscripts and 9 mausoleums. If 27,000 documents were saved from extinction, it's thanks to the librarians of Timbuktu, who secretly evacuated the texts by hiding them in rice sacks and transporting them on donkey carts. This first delivery represents more than 200 crates, or 5.5 tons, which are now returning to the Ahmed Baba Center.
I am very happy because it is very good news to see the return of the manuscripts and to see that now we will be able to go to the Ahmed Baba Center and continue our research and continue to learn from our manuscripts, from the history of Africa.
The precious manuscripts cover a wide range of knowledge, such as theology, astronomy, and even mathematics. The texts are one of the oldest historical treasures of the Afro-Muslim world and valuable witnesses to the great ancient empires of West Africa.
Some sports for you now. Sudan have caused a major upset, cruising to a landslide victory in their African Nations Championship game against Nigeria. 4-0 for the Sudanese side as the Super Eagles failed to hold the line. It comes after defending champions Senegal were forced to settle for a 1-1 draw against a spirited Congo side. Deshan Musavu scored early on, but Joseph Alaouse rescued a point for the Tigranga Lions in the second half. And finally, we are turning to a story about an artist turned climate activist in Zimbabwe. Since 2020, Tafad Zawigunwi has planted over 7,500 trees across the capital. He hopes to inspire the next generation to fight climate change and cool down the city's overheated neighborhoods. Emily Boyle has more.
One tree at a time, Tefadzwa Drini hopes to bring awareness to climate challenges faced by his community in this southern Harare neighborhood.
Where I come from, high density suburb, it felt like you are too much heat, like you are in an oven. So as soon as I finished school in 2020, I then tried to make sure that I close the tree density disparity between high density suburbs and low density suburbs.
Like many African capitals, Harare is grappling with rapid urbanization, but the city has struggled to keep up. The legacy of colonial-era planning, which often left poorer neighborhoods without green spaces and adequate tree cover, has exacerbated issues like erosion and deforestation. This led to noticeable temperature differences between rich and poor areas. Planted trees cool down neighborhoods and capture CO2 in the air.
The moment we have cut down the trees, that means we have reduced the carbon sinks in a particular area. What I mean by carbon sinks are trees, forests that were there 10 years ago, but now they are bare patches of land.
In order to inspire more action, primary school children are also being encouraged to learn about trees and their benefits.
We wanted to educate the kids on how to not just plant the trees, but how to maintain the trees. What kind of nutritional value do these fruits that the trees bear?
A study conducted by Monash University found that increasing vegetation in urban areas by 30% could have prevented more than 1 million heat-related deaths in the last 20 years.
Well, that's it from all of us on the Eye on Africa team, but do stay tuned to France 24.